Do you have really messed up shoulders? Join the club. I also have really messed up shoulders. Could it be that the exercises we are doing are contributing to that shoulder pain? Well, Men's Health would have you believe it. And if you know anything about me, you know I'm not the biggest fan of Men's Health. So today we're going to look at an article entitled 5 Shoulder Exercises You Should Never Do. I don't like to throw around the words never or always in strength training, but I'm willing to give Men's Health the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure that they are fine people over there, and they're just trying to get you stronger. So let's add some more context to this article. First up, we have the boogeyman of shoulder exercises you want to avoid. I don't know what happened in the past 5 to 6 years, but if you talk to any NASM certified CPT or any strength and conditioning coach, they'll tell you, don't do behind the neck movements without fail. I don't know what happened. I felt like when I was coming up, behind the neck movements were very popular. You do behind the neck pull downs, behind the neck shoulder presses. I understand why it's on here. The behind the neck shoulder press can feel very weird. Is it inherently injurious? Probably not. But most people don't want to stray into waters where they have to touch stuff that makes them hurt. Sometimes in the gym, we've got to do that. Let's read this author's reasoning behind why to not do behind the neck presses. Behind the neck presses are just overhead press that you guessed it, go behind the neck. Not true. They're 2 different movements. The move takes your elbows out of the scapular plane, which allows for fuller, healthier movement of your scapula. I don't know, maybe, based on what? Based on what biomechanics? You might feel okay doing behind the neck presses now, but the movement takes your shoulder out of proper positioning, which may have some effects long term. It's just not worth it. Based on what? How do you know that it's taking your scapula? If you have good scapular mobility, you can do behind the neck presses with very solid scapular mobility and not put yourself in a danger zone. This is the problem. This is the problem. We're already on the Men's Health rant. This is the problem with Men's Health and with fitness content in general, is there's a desire to be sensational because that's what drives clicks. Here I am trying to get you to click my videos. That's what drives clicks on articles like this. But that is not conducive to a learning environment in fitness and health because there's so much nuance and individuality that we cannot have sensationalism. It just doesn't work. So sure, the behind the neck press may feel a little bit uncomfortable, but if you train the behind the neck press appropriately, just like you would load a deadlift, you're not walking into the gym and loading up 405 on the deadlift your first day. You're not going into the gym and trying to behind the neck press 185 pounds. You're going to start with just the bar. You're going to see if you can get it all the way down to your shoulder blades. When I first started doing behind the neck press, I had to stop about mid-head because I don't have great range of motion. I started to train that range of motion so that I could get a little bit lower so that I could work through the movement and progress. The author offers us an alternative, which is the barbell overhead press, which is also a great movement. Don't get me wrong. I love the barbell overhead press, but I think these are 2 different movements with 2 different loading parameters and with 2 different purposes in your training. You are not going to be maxing out your behind the neck press, most likely. You're not going to be pushing that for 1 RMs. Whereas if you're a strongman competitor, you may be pushing the barbell overhead press in front of your neck for 1 rep max, for strength. These can be utilized in a smart, intelligently designed program. They're not going to hurt you as long as you are within the scope of intelligence. Moving on, the barbell upright row. I know I said that the behind the neck press was the boogeyman, but the barbell upright row is probably the boogeyman. Like this movement needs a new PR campaign because anybody and everybody that you talk to outside of like maybe Dave Tate and the elite FTS guys, I think Dr. Mike on RP kind of likes barbell upright rows. I don't know. A lot of people hate the barbell upright row, again, because it feels uncomfortable, because it's awkward. And awkward movements oftentimes make us think that we are going to get injured. Not always the case. Now, if you're on a Bosu ball and you're squatting, that also feels awkward. And maybe that's not as effective. But I think that we have enough evidence, maybe not science-based evidence, but anecdotal and bro evidence, which is also important in the field, because, Arnold didn't have a lot of science evidence when he was coming up. Sometimes we have to rely on the anecdotal evidence of the greats that have come before us, along with the scientific evidence. That's how we find balance. It seems that the upright row is not inherently injurious the same way that the behind the neck press is not inherently injurious. Just like we talked about with the behind the neck press, loading this appropriately, understanding that you can start with a lighter weight, that you can start with a longer barbell. I see a lot of people try and do these with the easy bar curls, and they're in tight like this, and of course that's packing your shoulders in a difficult position. Of course that's going to be uncomfortable. Use the barbell, spread your hands out. When I started doing this, I started in the Smith machine so that I could get a little bit of extra stability, so that I could feel a little bit more comfortable with the movement. It's all about finding ways to utilize exercises that work for you, or you can just skip the barbell upright row, but I don't think it belongs on a list like this. This movement can be substituted effectively with dumbbells over a barbell if it's more comfortable. I like the dumbbells for this movement because you can maneuver them a little bit. You can move one arm to this way, one arm to that way. It just feels a little bit better. So yeah, go ahead and do the dumbbells. You don't have to do any of these exercises, or you can do all of these exercises. That's the beauty of individualized training. Moving on, we've got heavy lateral raises. Okay, this is cheating because these are movements, not loading parameters for movements. The article was titled Movements That You Shouldn't Do, but this is a loading parameter because lateral raises, when loaded correctly, are one of the most effective and useful tools to building the side delt. However, just because you start loading them heavy, which is not the movement's fault, it's the gym bro's fault, now we're putting them in a category where you should never do them. Don't love that. Lateral raises, great movement. You can also go heavy with them. Go look up Ginger Cleese, I think is what his Instagram name is. He's lateral raising the hundreds. Now, is he using low body English? Of course, but sometimes you gotta train hard to get big. Sorry. Lateral raises themselves are really good for building the medial head of the shoulders. Yes, so they should not be on this list. Very often in the gym, you'll see guys picking up 40, 50, 60-pound dumbbells. Yeah, I mean, you got us there. This causes a bunch of form mistakes that take out emphasis on the shoulders. They'll start to swing the hips, which doesn't do much for the building of the shoulder. They'll also bend more of the elbow to compensate for the heavy weight, which pops into internal rotation, a vulnerable position to be in. Oof. Vulnerable if you are not used to that position, but if you're trained in that position, I digress. Our substitute here is form first incline lateral raises. We're just trying to fill time. We're just trying to fill pages at this point because it's a lateral raise. If a lateral raise is done correctly, it's a great exercise. Even if it's done with a little bit of cheating, it can still be a good exercise. If you take the approach of form first with all of your movements, with your behind the neck press, with your upright row, if you do this form first style of training, I would argue that you are putting yourself in the best position to grow muscular tissue and stay as safe as possible. Next up, standing dumbbell external rotation. We found one that I think I agree with her on. This one is garbage. I truly do not like this exercise at all. If you don't know what this exercise is, you stand up, you got dumbbells, and you're doing this. I mean, it looks stupid. I'm 100% with the author on this one. The gravity is not moving in the way that you think it's moving. If you're trying to externally rotate, you want the force curve to follow that external rotation. So that's why you see a lot of physical therapists and a lot of personal trainers, when they're talking about rotator cuff health, talk about utilizing a band or a cable that's going to distribute the force in a plane that's actually going to have you resist against that movement. If you're just holding the dumbbell like this, your bicep is enacting on the weight to keep it from falling. Your external rotators are not doing anything in this position. So it's truly garbage. Here we go. Instead, we want the cable external rotation. This is kind of falling out of favor. I'm not a huge fan of this exercise. If you find value using this exercise for shoulder health, go ahead and do it, but don't do it with a dumbbell. So there you go. See, I'm not a hater of Men's Health completely. We found something that I agree with. Great work, Men's Health. Great work. Next up, front raise. Oh, I'm here again. I don't love the front raise. I think the front raise is fine. I don't think it's dangerous, but I think that there are better ways to build your front delts. And if you're a power lifter and you're bench pressing 3 to 4 times a week, or you're a bodybuilder who is pressing 2 or 3 times a week, you do not also have to do front raises unless you really want to dial in your front delts and get more volume. So no, it's not going to hurt you, but it may be redundant in the plan. Instead, what do we need to do? Medial and rear delt exercises. So the argument here is not so much that front raises are terrible, but as I would say, they're kind of redundant, but also we substitute front raises for rear delt work and side delt work, which I would agree with. I think that there's a lot of people that are really neglecting their rear delts, medial delts to a degree, but we have a tendency as people who go to the gym for vanity, for wanting to look better, to really push the exercises that we can see. So our chest, our shoulders, our front delts, abs, but we're not really working the muscles that we can't see. So a lot of times our back and our posterior chain gets kind of neglected, especially when you're first starting out in the gym. So I think this is a great reminder that a well-rounded workout routine includes these types of movements as well. Honestly, folks, not as bad as I thought. There are a couple things that I definitely disagree with, but there's also some things that I agree with in this article. So, like I always say, we need to take a nuanced approach. I am going to beat this drum until they take this YouTube channel away from me. We need more nuance and individualization in fitness content, and I'm going to keep trying to do that. It may be boring. I don't care. The most important thing in your fitness journey is finding movements, exercises, routines, loading parameters, and fitting them around you and your schedule, your wants, your needs, your desires, your life in general. So that's what we're going to keep doing. Men's Health has some pretty bad articles. It also has some pretty good articles. So it's not like I'm absolutely crushing Men's Health at all times. I thought this was an interesting article that I came across that I wanted to add a little bit more nuance and context to. And for that, I thank Men's Health for putting this article out. If you enjoyed this video, I would recommend you subscribe and you join our Discord so that we can talk a little bit more about how to get you stronger. Also, if you want to see me rant at Men's Health a little bit more, you can click on this video right here. Thank you so much for watching. Get strong and stay strong.